Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about monopolistic competition. Now, monopolistic competition is one of those imperfectly competitive market structure that is closer to reality, that lies somewhere between perfect competition and monopoly. And most of the markets that we see around us are basically either monopolistic competition or oligopoly. What we're going to do today is walk you through some of the materials that are contained in these PowerPoint slides, which will talk about how we can understand the monopolistically competitive industry. We will look at the structure of the market, we will look at the equilibrium conditions, and we are going to look at the profit maximizing decisions under monopolistic competition. Let us first define what monopolistic competition is. Monopolistic competition, as I mentioned, is somewhere between a perfectly competitive industry and a monopoly. It's a market structure in which there are a large number of firms. They compete with each other. Each firm produces somewhat a differentiated goods, a word that we are going to spend a lot of time understanding today. Differentiation is a very important part of the market monopolistically competitive industry. Differentiated goods are goods that are very similar to each other, but they are not identical. They are not homogeneous. The best example of a differentiated good could be toothpaste. Toothpaste is one of my favorite examples. So imagine toothpaste. When you go to Walmart, you will see that there are probably 50 different brands of toothpaste, and each brand has its own property. Like, some has fluoride in it, some has some kind of whitening element in it, but at the end of the day, these are all toothpaste. So although they have different kind of brands, they have different kind of packaging style, some ingredient in that good is different, but these are differentiated good of the same good called toothpaste. And that is very interesting, because when you have differentiated goods, each consumer knows why and how a good produced by one company is different from the toothpaste produced by the other one. But at the same time, these are differentiated goods. What is more important about monopolistic competition is that the idea of competition in monopolistically competitive industry takes a variety of different shapes, and we will explore all of them today. We will see that our firms compete not only on price and quantity, they also compete on product quality, and they also compete on marketing. Two new ideas that we are going to introduce today, and we're going to explain how product quality could play a critical role in defining the competition in this market, and so does marketing. Firms are free to exit and entry, so this is like an element from perfect competition. Large number of firms is also an element from perfect competition, but when firms each sell differentiated goods, they really have a customer base, they really have a market power, and one could argue that this is an element from monopoly. Now, let's explore each of these properties of our monopolistically competitive industry. The idea of a large number of firms is critical. When there are large number of firms, this is an element for perfect competition. We understand that with a large number of firms, each firm has a very small market share. No firm really can dominate the entire market. They can only focus on only one part of or on one segment of the market that they can really cater for. And with a large number of firms, collusion becomes impossible. This is a very important concept, because we are going to look at another market structure called oligopoly, where the firms can really collude. Okay, now let's spend time on the concept that I was talking about that really sets a different tone for our monopolistically competitive industry. The idea is product differentiation. Product differentiation is making a product that is slightly different from the products of other competing firms. So this is toothpaste. I mean, I am making toothpaste, you are making toothpaste, but your toothpaste has fluoride and my toothpaste has some kind of whitening element. Our differentiated product has close substitutes like your toothpaste and my toothpaste are the same or very similar, but they are not perfect substitutes because if I can convince my buyers that fluoride is important for them, or if you can convince your buyers that whitening element is good for them, you can actually get a chunk of the market share, and I can get a chunk of the market share. So in some sense, both you and I, all the firms in this market really faces a customer base, which means that they have a little bit of market power, and therefore their demand curve is downward sloping, meaning that within that sub block, within that slice of the market where people are really want to buy your good, you are going to face a downward sloping demand curve. Now let us spend a little bit of time talking about this three-dimensional competition that really characterizes monopolistic competition. Since there are a large number of firms and the goods that are being produced by firms are basically differentiated rather than identical, there is room for intense competition in this market. The impossibility of collusion makes this competition even more intense. So in this intense competition, firms will be competing not only in terms of the price, but they are also going to be competing in terms of quality, and most importantly, they are going to compete in terms of marketing. So let's look at what these are. So let's try to get an example of how firms could compete with quality. Like, we can think about quality in terms of design, reliability, after sale services, buyers' ease to access to the product. These are all very important part of the modern day quality issue. So if I can buy vacuum cleaner from firm A and firm B, and firm B is offering me a better customer service, there is a very high chance that I will buy the vacuum cleaner from firm B. So quality competition is intense. Price competition in monopolistic competition is very much similar to what we have seen so far. And it is very much similar to our monopoly case. Since our differentiated product firm faces a downward sloping demand curve, they know that in order to sell more, they really have to reduce the price. So there is now no surprise in the price competition. But now let us spend some time talking about the marketing competition. So why is marketing so important? Now you have to understand from the beginning that the good that our firms are selling are differentiated good, which means that they are not that much different from the goods that are being produced by other firms. So when a firm is producing a differentiated good, it is very important for the firm to convey this information to the buyer. It is important for the firm to really convince the buyers that part of or some of the characteristics that the good that they are producing is different from everyone else. So marketing is a huge part of the competitive structure of monopolistic competition. We can think about marketing solely sort of falls into two categories. We are going to talk about marketing in terms of packaging and marketing in terms of advertisement. Okay, we are going to do that later on. As we mentioned before, that entry and exit is free in monopolistically competitive industry, meaning that anyone can come in, anyone can go out. This seems like a perfectly competitive industry requirement. But what are you going to? But even when our firms have some degree of market power, we're going to see that this entry and exit is going to create a situation where firms will be earning zero economic profit in the long run. We have seen firms earning zero economic profit in monopoly as well. And we have seen that firms can earn zero economic profit in perfect competition as well. But then there are some differences between what zero economic profit in the long run means for monopolistic competition versus what it means for perfect competition. We're going to show that this is where the idea of efficiency loss comes from. Okay, before we look at all these, the profit maximizing condition, the implications of advertisement and packaging, we need to understand how do we identify monopolistic competition. This question is not a trivial question. Why? Because monopolistic competition is hard to detect, right? Because monopolistic competition has properties that are very similar to perfect competition, and at the same time, monopolistic competitive firm face a downward sloping demand curve, meaning that they have certain degree of market power. So we really need to find a way to identify monopolistic competition. We are going to do very similar things with our oligopoly market, another imperfectly competitive market later on. This question, have troubled economists, earlier on, where they wanted to find a universally accepted method to really identify monopolistic competition, and they came up with two, sort of measurement. The first one is a very old measurement. It's called a 4-firm concentration ratio. And the second one is named after two very famous economists, Hender-Findel Hirschman Index. Let's look at what these are. The 4-firm concentration ratio is used to be the industry standard. It is the percentage of the values of sale accounted for by the 4 largest firm in the industry. So this percentage could range from 0 to 100. So if this ratio is 0 or close to 0, we know that the market is perfectly competitive, which means that every firm is selling very tiny quantity in the market. Or if this is very close to like 100%, we know that the market is monopolistic. A percentage of somewhere between 75 and 80% is considered monopolistic competition. I apologize. And also, in addition to that, if the ratio exceeds somewhere between 60 and 70, this is going to be like an oligopoly. Okay. I think I made a mistake. The number is that if the ratio is less than 40%, then it would mean that we have a large number of firms. But again, each firm is covering a major chunk of the industry, so that will be characterized by monopolistic competition. So less than 40%, greater than 0 is monopolistic competition. Less than 70% and over and more than less than 80% and more than 60% is oligopoly, something that we're going to look at later on. Let us now focus on the Hirschman index. So let's look at what the index is. The Hirschman index is the square of the percentage market share of each firm summed over the largest 50 firms in the market. Example, let's imagine that there are 4 firms. Each one has a market share of 50%, 25%, 15%, and 10%. Now, the Hirschman index would therefore be the sum of the square of each of these terms. So when you do that, you find the score is like 3,450. A market with a HHI less than 1,000 is regarded as competitive, and between 1,000 and 1,800 it is moderately competitive. For a number of 3,550, I think this looks more like oligopoly than monopolistic competition. More on that later. Okay, so we have looked at a way to find or at least characterize monopolistic competition. But monopolistic competition is a complicated market structure because we are looking at firms that are being engaged into price, quantity, and advertisement competition all at the same time. So a lot of issues such as brand loyalty, such as how efficient the firms are marketing their product could really determine the profit level of these firms. So let us therefore move on to the profit maximization decision of our firm under monopolistic competition. Since our monopolistically competitive firm faces a downward sloping demand curve, the implication for marginal revenue and demand curve would be very similar to monopoly, just like we did before. And we're going to see that the profit maximizing condition under monopolistic competition has a lot of elements from monopoly. Let's look at the profit maximizing decision under monopolistic competition in a graphical setup. So in the graph below, you are looking at, you can see that the marginal cost and the average total cost has their usual shape. The marginal revenue curve is below the demand curve, so, and it is steeper than the market demand curve. So the equilibrium will be found where the marginal revenue and the marginal cost intersects each other. So the way to find market equilibrium price is go up to the demand curve and find what the market equilibrium price is. The way to find market equilibrium quantity is go down vertically and find the market equilibrium quantity. You should notice here that in this case, when the market equilibrium is found at A, price is actually greater than average total cost. Price, which is $100, is higher than the average cost of production, which is 50. If price is greater than average total cost, we know that the area, this area, which is the area above the average total cost, is the area of profit that the monopolistic firm is making. So a couple of important issues. Just like monopolistic competition will have an equilibrium price where price is greater than average cost, and also price is greater than marginal cost. When price is greater than average cost, this will always generate profit. And profit is something that is going to make our monopolistically competitive industry very, very interesting to analyze. Okay, so that's that. Now, we want to understand, just like perfect competition, as how this profit affects our market. Remember, just like the perfect competition, entry and exit is allowed in monopolistic competition. So if our existing firms are making profit in this monopolistically competitive industry, we should expect that new firms are going to enter into this industry. So if new firms enter into this industry, this is going to create a problem for our existing firms. So let's try to draw that and try to get an understanding as how this entry is going to affect us. So let us imagine that we had the original market equilibrium conditions where the demand curve was lying above the marginal revenue curve. So that's my marginal revenue, this is my demand, and then we had a situation where the marginal cost curve was going up like that, and we had average total cost, and we found that the market equilibrium price is found where the marginal cost intersects marginal revenue. Let's say P star and Q star are the market equilibrium price and quantity, and we see that at this level price is greater than average cost, and if it happens, then we have profit. Okay, so that's our standard monopolistically competition. But now we are considering a situation where there is free entry and exit into this industry. So when there is short-run profit, our short-run profit is going to force our new firms to enter into this industry, just like we saw in perfect competition. So we want to understand now what happens to the existing firms when there are entry or buy new firms in the industry. So remember, all these firms produce differentiated product. So the firm that is entering is also producing and selling differentiated product to their customers. So if we have a competitor who is producing substitute goods in the market, the demand for the existing firms will go down. Okay. If the demand for the existing firms go down, we could now have very serious situation where our demand curve might actually shift down, like this, and eventually we might have a situation where eventually what we will have is our demand curve will shift so much that we will be having interesting situation where as our demand curve continues to shift down, we might actually have a situation where the new demand curve has shifted down to D1, and we have instead of finding equilibrium price at P star and equilibrium quantity Q star, we are now going to have equilibrium at a situation where marginal cost and marginal revenue are going to intersect each other at a lower quantity, and if at that lower quantity we are going to have the price a little bit different than the original price. So my drawing was not really good, so let me try to understand what would happen. So if we have entry into the market, we will see, as just like we're seeing that we have a demand curve which is sort of shifted version of the original demand curve. Our marginal revenue curve also shifted down. So finally what we are having is an equilibrium where the marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, but at that price now the price and the marginal cost are equal. The price and the average cost are equal. So when price and average costs are equal, this means zero profit for our firm. So just like perfect competition, because of entry in the long run, monopolistically competitive industry also offers zero economic profit. But there is a difference between monopolistic competition and perfect competition. Let us now emphasize on that. It is true, when we compare between monopolistically competitive industry and perfect competition, it is true that both of them earn zero economic profit in the long run. Both of them can earn positive economic profit in the short run. There are a large number of firms. There appears to be a lot of similarities, but then there are also differences. The two key differences that we are going to talk about today is excess capacity and price exceeding marginal cost. What is excess capacity? Excess capacity is the quantity that a firm produces which is less than the quantity that could have been produced by minimizing average cost. Okay, so let me rephrase the statement. Excess capacity is the output level at which the average total cost is not the minimum. What do you mean by that? Sometimes a firm might decide that expanding output where the minimum cost is where the average cost is minimum might not be worthwhile, right? This idea of excess capacity is directly connected with this idea of efficient scale. Efficient scale is the quantity of production at which average total cost is minimum, which means that excess capacity is any output level below the efficient scale level of output. What do I mean by that? Let's look at this graph. Imagine that the economy was producing at a point where marginal cost was equal to the minimum point of the average cost. And we know that this is where the efficient level of output is being produced. And that would be 100. We know that when MC is equal to minimum average cost, that is a long run condition under perfect competition, right? So you can therefore see that 100 units of output and probably like 70 price is a profit maximizing is a long run equilibrium condition under perfect competition, whereas in monopolistic competition a firm produces where the output level is not, the average total cost is not minimum, but we have intersection between demand and supply, intersection between marginal cost and marginal revenue. Let's call this 75, and the quantity is less than 100. So if this is perfect competition, the intersection between marginal cost and minimum average cost, and if the intersection between average total cost and demand is the monopolistically competitive, let's call it MC, we can see that there is a difference between how much output monopolistically competitive industry is producing and how much output perfect competition is producing. We should see clearly that monopolistically competitive industry charges a higher price as indicated by the vertical axis, and monopolistically competitive industry produces less output. So just like monopoly, our monopolistically competitive industry also can create a deadweight loss. The area of the deadweight loss can be indicated by how we have identified deadweight loss before. So the deadweight loss is indeed the area, the sort of the rectangular area below the demand curve and above the marginal cost curve, supply curve. So that is the deadweight loss that we all know how to define. So deadweight loss. Okay, so it is interesting to notice that a lot of discussion about monopolistic competition can be interpreted in terms of perfect competition and can be interpreted in terms of the monopoly. So that's very interesting. But I would argue that what sets our monopolistically competitive firm apart from perfect competition and monopoly are the idea of competition that is embedded in monopolistically competitive industry. Because of the complicated nature of the market, our firms are engaged into a multi-dimensional competition among them. One important component of competition is in terms of marketing and advertisement. The other kind of competition that exists in monopolistically competitive industry is in terms of quality. Quality is a very complicated concept because when we think about quality or quality improvement to begin with, we are thinking about there being a physical or user end improvement in the quality of the product that is being produced, right? Sometimes it could be true, sometimes it could be just a veil, sometimes it could be just artificial. But what is true that quality changes and quality competitions give rise to these two very important words that you are looking at your slide: innovation and product development. Innovation and product development by far are the most important ways firms can survive in a monopolistically competitive industry. The motivation behind innovation and product development is indeed profit. Whenever there is profit, we know that other firms are going to start emerging and imitating the existing profit maximizing firms. So a classic example is that now you have like a Chinese iPhone, which looks and works very much like a actual Apple phone, but the price of that Chinese iPhone is like 1/3 of what Apple sells for. So imitators are always there, and a firm, a profit maximizing firm, in the presence of imitators, face intensive competition. They have to make a decision about investing in innovation and product development. Now, as we're going to show in a couple of minutes, that this decision to engage into innovation and product development is not a trivial one. In order to understand the decision-making process that goes through product innovation, we really need to understand about the cost and the benefit of product innovation. just like any other economic agents, our firms are going to balance the cost and benefit of innovation and then make a decision of whether they want to innovate. So let's try to understand innovation from an efficiency perspective. The question that we are starting with is product innovation an efficient decision-making process by our firm? Or, let's put it in a simple terms, by achieving product innovation, can a firm really achieve product efficiency? The answer to that question is it depends. It's a complicated concept. Let's move on and try to understand the cost and benefit of product innovation. For a firm, the marginal benefit of innovation is the extra revenue that they get from the buyer, which is equal to the price that the buyer is willing to pay. The cost of innovation is obviously the money that firms are putting into their industry. So we can therefore talk about marginal benefit and marginal cost. Marginal benefit to a firm of innovation is the extra revenue they get. Nothing is free in this world. The marginal cost is the cost of producing a good. So you have marginal cost and marginal benefit of a firm, of an innovation. A firm will innovate where marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost. That will determine how much innovation our firms is planning to make. We have to understand that since we are going to be in monopolistically competitive industry, we'll always be in a situation where price is going to be greater than marginal cost and marginal benefit, which is actually good in the sense that if prices are greater than marginal cost and it is also greater than marginal benefit, there is a strong rationale for firms to really engage into product innovation. To summarize, our firms will innovate if the marginal cost of innovation is equal to the marginal benefit. So let's say you look at a market, you see that there is a lot of competition, and then you think about innovating, adding something to your existing product. Now what? Does innovation automatically guarantee that you will be able to sell more and get a larger share of the profit? The answer is clearly no. In order to really make your customers be aware of the technological innovation that you are making, you need to engage in marketing. You need to engage in marketing. And marketing, therefore, have become a key pillar in explaining monopolistic competition. Firms in monopolistic competition spend huge amount of money in marketing, in advertisement, and in packaging their product. As we mentioned before, there are two ideas of marketing, right? One is advertisement, where firms will air TV ads, they will have billboard signs that will try to promote their product, and they will also spend millions of dollars just packaging their product in a slightly different way, in a slightly exciting way, and hope that this is sufficient enough information given to the buyer so that the buyer can buy their product. Now, marketing is expensive. We all understand that, right? Marketing is expensive. And marketing heavily depends on the price that the consumers are paying, because part of the prices should cover the cost of marketing in a market. Okay, so when we talk about marketing, we obviously need to understand the marginal cost of marketing and how it can be a blessing rather than a curse to our firm. So marketing expenditure obviously increases with the cost of in a monopolistically competitive firm. We should also understand that as a result of marketing, the average cost of production is higher in monopolistic competition than in perfect competition. So what do you mean by that? You have to understand the selling costs, such as advertisement costs, they are basically fixed, because they are sunk cost, in the sense that you really have to spend this money and might not expect any benefit from it. Advertisement cost is a fixed cost, so as you produce more and you make the same kind of advertisement cost, your average cost of advertisement slowly goes down. But regardless of how average cost of production is spread out, one thing is clear: with advertisement, your average cost of production is going to be much higher. Let's look at the graph. So imagine that your average cost of production is the blue line, and as you spend money on advertisement, for every output level, your cost of advertisement is added to the existing cost, and that sort of shifts your average cost up. Simple as that. It shifts your average cost up as a result of advertisement cost. We are now looking at an average cost which is higher than the average cost curve in perfect competition. So we can see clearly that as firms increase their production, average cost goes down. This is law. This is economics of scale. And after finding the minimum level, if the firm if the firm continues to produce more, continues to advertise more, their cost of production is going to go up. Okay, so selling cost or advertisement cost and other costs that constitute your selling cost, they will have an effect on how the consumers demand the product, right? If you are advertising sort of effectively, you should be able to find new customers, and that is always good for you. But the effect of advertisement is very, very complex, and let me walk you through the problem that we face when we look at the effect of advertisement on monopolistic competition. One could think about the effect of competition in a two different dimension. One could think about advertisement by firms themselves. So we could argue that if firms are spending money, they will be able to sell more quantity, so their quantity might go up. But if advertisements sell by the entire market is done, meaning that everyone else in the market is advertisement, that could reduce the amount of quantity that our firm sells. So that's a very, very serious problem. So firms' own advertisement can increase the amount people are buying, but if on the other hand every other firm is replicating the advertisement strategy, that might really lead to a reduction in the demand, right? So we really do not know how advertisement really affects the demand of firms in this market. The price might fall, the price might go up. It really depends on how the product, how advertisement is really being played out. So the discussion of product development and marketing and how it shapes the profit maximizing behavior of our monopolistically competitive firm is rather complex. We could therefore make a more concrete argument in terms of the efficiency loss and gain under monopolistic competition. What we should see is that in this market, regardless of different kinds of competition, at the end of the day, the main debate will be between how much money we are willing to spend on promoting our product and how much return we are going to get in terms of the revenue that we can generate. So that sort of stops our discussion on the monopolistic competition. The next discussion will be on oligopoly.